Question. Did you just recently take a financial hit, like a job loss, out of nowhere? Let's talk about this. Back in a minute. Excuse me. Hi, this is Jan from New York City. My channel name is Jan from New York City Saves Money. How you doing today? If you recently took a sudden income loss, out of nowhere, you go in and all of a sudden you find a pink slip on your desk, not because of any even fault of your own, but the company decided to revamp everything. It's happened to me, so I know all about it. I've spoken about this in the past, but I could talk about it again in the future. And it is not a pretty place to be. You could be the best worker in the world and things happen. This is real life. Okay, so I'm going to jump into it. It could happen to anyone. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Life happens. Just saying, even to the best of us. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is suggest this. Don't panic. And literally, like take a deep breath. On the day that it actually happened to me, which happened to have been Valentine's Day, 1997, I had to walk home. I lived in walking distance from where I used to work. And I had to walk home across huge Manhattan avenues. Let's just say this. My mind was so far away from paying attention to the traffic. It is a miracle that I got home in one piece, truly. So truly, the first thing you do is take a deep breath. Well, another first thing to do is before anything like this happens is be prepared. I am all for an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But sometimes either we're not prepared enough or we never thought these things could happen to us or whatever the reason, and there is no prepared. Again, this is real life. These things happen. In the perfect world, everyone is prepared. Everyone has oodles of noodles of backup, and it's not such a big deal. But again, this is real life. So let's talk about real life. So in all probability, I wrote these down because I don't want to miss a beat. In all probability, the last thing you want to hear is your job has been cut due to layoffs or the company ceased operations, or you had the type of job. Let's say you were a waitress or a waiter, and your job relied heavily on tips. And for whatever the reason, I don't know the reason, but the reason exists that this job is no longer. This job is just suddenly no longer. The business maybe went belly up. Again, no fault of your own. These things happen. Or another thing that's out of your control, perhaps you lost a loved one that may have financially, contributed to your life, if you know what I'm saying. If you suddenly lose a loved one and this change affected your financial dynamics. Again, this is real life. These things happen. But again, you shouldn't panic because for number one, panicking is not healthy. It's not going to do a thing for you. Take the option of the deep breath. If you have to just put on some great music, go out, take a walk, whatever. Just breathe. It'll get better. Okay. Next. This is important. Sit down calmly, make a cup of tea, have coffee, hot chocolate, whatever you like, water, when you're decompressed. Play that music, nice music in the background. You'd be amazed. It helps. And start thinking in an undistracted room, if you will, of prioritizing the bills that need to get paid first. You need to know the calendar of events, if you will. When are those bills coming due? How many of you actually know your utility bills, billing cycles offhand? How many of you have recorded those dates in your calendar or your day planner? It's actually a good idea to do that because you'll have more of an organized sense of how and when, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. It helps. Sit down and prioritize the bills. Ask yourself, when are those bills coming due? write this down on a calendar or a planner. And by the way, these things can be done before any of this happens. If something like this happens, you get to do it ahead of time, before the storm. Be prepared before the storm. That's why it's so important to become familiar with your budget or spending plan, not to be afraid of it. And that's its own show, and we'll talk about that again. I've spoken about this stuff in the past, but we're going to go over these things, especially in the brand new year and stuff like that. So you're going to ask yourself which bills need to be paid immediately versus other bills that you may have a little bit of wiggle room, okay, to postpone. Again, get familiar with those bills. Personally, I believe the most attention of bills should go to your shelter, meaning your housing, your rent, etc., your food, housing, food, utilities, clothing. And clothing doesn't mean designer store clothing. No, unless you design a store. You heard what I said. You know what I meant, design a label. Maybe get them if you want at the clothing drive or, Goodwill or whatever, which you could actually probably do. But that's when things start taking little changes that may be drastic for some people. For some people, they never stepped foot in a thrift store. Never. But if they're not prepared, they might just have to start doing that. That's not a bad thing. You may find yourself loving the good deals you're going to get too. Just saying. But, okay. Personally, I believe the most attention goes to the food, the shelter, and of course, utilities. Next, the good news is that as our frugal community knows, so if you're brand new here, by the way, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. As our frugal community is so aware of, we're kind of like veterans at this stuff. So that, which is great because we're used to, on purpose, living a certain way on purpose for better things. So when something strikes unexpectedly, we're not really apt to panic because we're just going to an extra, maybe frugal mode, if you will. The skills are there. So it's good to grow your frugality muscles. But you do have plenty of flexibility with food. And speaking of food, the great news is there are so many resources. It is unacceptable that anybody in my area or your area should go hungry. It's just an unacceptable thing. Especially here in the US, you could go apply for SNAP benefits, okay? Supplementary nutrition program. Check into that. Check into your local food banks. Do that. There's no shame in it. You need to do it. You do it. It's just that simple. It's not your forever place. Always remember that. This is not your forever place. I tell people that a lot because it's true. So don't let it get you down at all. Another thing that's really important, establish a nice relationship in the first place with your utility companies or other bill paying companies that are on your list. In better times, normal times, you pay your bills on time. You'll be amazed that you may actually get that person on the phone during the tougher, challenging times, perhaps to give you a little grace and wiggle room or an extension of time on a bill that then you could pick up a quick side hustle and pay it off and not get into jeopardy. So you need to stay in communication, call the companies that you owe to see if something can be done for you and try getting that straightened out and getting an extension of time, for example. Next, you gotta get the imaginary scissors out. Snap, 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 snip, snip. Cut out all unnecessary expenses. Definitely need a sip of my hot chocolate. Today I'm in a hot chocolate mood. Okay. Cut out all unnecessary expenses. It's just that simple, but it's just that hard. What do I mean by it's just that simple, it's just that hard? Exactly what you heard. Sure, okay, I'll cut out my expenses. Well, the theory's simple. The follow-up could be difficult for some people. For some people, the comfort zone is always the extras, the more ofs, the I eat outs every minute of the waking day type people, to having to make a drastic change. That's why in better times, do things gradually so that it is not such a horrendous, huge thing to do if, heaven forbid, the need comes and you might just have to, like as a lifestyle for a while. Next, turn to your emergency fund. It is my utmost hope that you have had an emergency fund building or a rainy day fund. Even a fund for 1 month is better than nothing. So this is the great news part. If you're in your quote normal situation, got your job, blah, 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 start preparing now. It's actually a lot better to be ready for such an emergency than to start scrambling and going, what am I going to do now? You don't want that, okay? So start preparing little by little, and that includes your food stockpile. Food stockpiles are just as valuable as the other stuff because it costs money to buy food, doesn't it? Just knowing that stuff is there is a really good mental cushion. Again, you can prepare for it little by little by little and making wise choices. Next, look around your house or apartment to see if there's anything that you can sell right away. The great news today is that we have the internet. We can sell things quickly. Do it, put the ad up from the comfort of your home, place free ads. Gone are the days of expensive ads. I mean, like for you to do like a person that just lost their job type thing. Just get online. Go to organizations like Craigslist, for example. That's just an example. There are many more. And then in the meantime, while you are online, start looking aggressively for your next full-time job, if that was your main source of income, and get that resume updated and get it out there. But the best thing I could just suggest of all is just prepare before the storm strikes. The storm could happen to anybody at any time, and I don't care how great of a worker you are, because life happens. In the meantime, this has been Jan from New York City. Thank you so much for viewing. Why? Because I really do appreciate you. I'm going to close out the show, and I'll be back in a second. Take good care. Everything will be all right. Take the necessary steps. You'll be okay. Have a great day.